Good evening. This is a public hearing of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the City of Evanston. The zoning ordinance empowers this body to hear applications for variances, special uses, and appeals from decisions of the zoning administrator. Depending on the type of matter, this board will make either a final determination or send its recommendation to City Council. Present tonight are board members Mary Beth Burns, Beth McLennan, Andrew Gallimore, and I'm Matt Rogers. Therefore, we have a quorum. Also present from the city are zoning staff Melissa Klotz, Mark Munzer, and city attorney Ken Cox. This is a formal meeting and there are rules that govern our proceedings. Most important, only one person speaks at a time to accurately record the proceedings. Anyone who wishes to address the board regarding any matter on the agenda will have the opportunity to do so at the appropriate time. Our normal procedure is to hear from staff on the documents on file. We will then receive testimony and other evidence from the applicant or appellant. After hearing from the applicant or appellant, any person with a legal interest in property located within 500 feet of the subject property may present evidence, reasonably question witnesses, or seek a continuance of the hearing. Next, others who wish to make a statement regarding the matter may do so at that time. When all opposing testimony and other statements have been heard, the applicant or appellant will be given the opportunity for rebuttal or a closing statement. All testimony will be under oath. Although we do not apply the strict rules of evidence, please limit your testimony or statement to your personal knowledge. When you testify or make a statement, please state your name and address and be sure to sign up on the provided sheet. I believe there's one out front. We are audio and video recorded in this space. Please make sure you are at a microphone when asking questions or making statements so you can be properly recorded. All proceedings are subject to broadcast at a later date. When all the testimony, evidence, and statements have been received into the record, the board will close the record and begin its deliberations. We usually try to adjourn by 11 p.m. Any matter not concluded on tonight's hearing will be continued to our next regularly scheduled meeting. We do not have our regular chairman here this evening, so the first matter of business is to elect an acting chair.
I move that we elect Matt Rogers as acting chair tonight.
I would second that.
There has been a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
It being unanimous, I will be acting as tonight's chairman. We have 3 matters on the agenda for this evening, 2 unfinished business and 1 new business. The first matter is regarding 1015 Chicago Avenue, which is 13 ZM JV 0062. According to staff, we have received a request for a continuance to our October 1st meeting. With that, is there a motion?
Sure. I move in the matter of 13 ZMJV-0062, 1015 Chicago Avenue, that we continue that to the next scheduled meeting of October 1st.
That's actually not our next scheduled meeting, but
The next
available meeting.
The next available meeting of October 1st.
I second that motion.
There is a motion and second to move this matter to October 1st. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Having 4 ayes, the matter is continued to our October 1st meeting. The other 2 meetings are the other 2 matters on our agenda tonight. One of them has an open motion currently, which is the matter regarding 1724 Livingston Street, 13 ZMJV 0067. For this particular matter, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. So if I would call the 3 people, including myself, who have not voted on this matter, please vote either aye, nay, or present. Mr. Gallimore?
Present.
Ms. McLennan?
Present.
I also cast a vote of present. Therefore, this does not receive the 4 votes that it needs to pass or the 4 votes to deny it. Therefore, this matter can be reopened. And so I would look for a motion to reopen the record on 13 ZMJV 0067.
I move that in the case of 13 ZMJV-0067, 1724 Livingston Street, that we reopen the case for further testimony and discussion.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Therefore, this matter will be reopened and new evidence and testimony can be received into the record. Yes, if you could please read the matter into the record again, and I will remind everyone who spoke last time that they are still under oath, and I'm going to have to trust you since I wasn't here last time to tell me if you were sworn in or not.
E.V. Russell, property owner, applies for major zoning relief to install an AC condensing unit. The applicant requests a side yard setback of 3.5 feet, where 10 feet is required. Zoning Code Section 6469B. The Zoning Board of Appeals is the determining body for this case. Additional information that has been provided for the record includes request for relief from 2003 Mechanical Code for noise level, building official's letter granting relief, additional information from applicant, decibel comparison chart from applicant, summary of amendments to city building codes, letters from neighbors, Zoning Board of Appeals draft meeting minutes of August 6th, 2013, as well as 2 additional letters of support that were handed out to all members at the beginning of the meeting.
Thank you. Is the applicant in the room? Okay, and is there anyone else here who will be speaking to us on this matter? And have you been sworn, or shall I swear everybody? No, I haven't. You have not. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings? Thank you. Ms. Russell, if you'd like to step up and tell us what you have learned in the time between the last meeting and today. And I'm sure we'll have questions.
Okay, members of the board. My first question is, you did receive this material and read the material that I submitted, or do I have to cover that? Regarding the decibels.
All of that documentation has been passed on to the zoning board.
Okay. So I will, first let me correct an error I listed on the submitted documentation. To achieve 55 decibel at lot line, the condenser unit would have to be 64 decibel, not 66 at source. At the August 6th zoning appeal meeting, I had no chance to respond to some issues raised by the members after I was seated. I would like to address those now, since they revolve mostly about the issue of noise, which I think is key to this situation, because of distance. I mean, it's the issue of noise. One issue was, why not install regular AC large ducts that would allow a more efficient air handler in the basement, which in turn would allow for a more efficient and quieter condenser outside? In fact, we're placing our Unico air handler in the basement because, due to architectural layout of second floor, the orientation of the joist, and the lack of space in the walls, we cannot even run 17-inch ducts between the first and second floor, nor can we run 12-inch ducts across the length of the 2 bedrooms on the second floor, for they're separated by a metal bathroom. Only 2-inch ducts can be accommodated in the gable space on the second floor, thus we can only use a Unico spaceback option. The Unico air handler appropriate to our house's small footprint is a single-stage 13-SEER. A variable speed 14.14 SEER air handler does exist, not that it would make much of a difference in the condenser's choice. At any rate, our contractor, certified Unico installer, does not recommend this unit for our situation. Besides the added expense, it's too new on the market to have a good history of reliability. Regarding 13 or 14 SEER condenser units that are quieter, I have not found any unit significantly quieter, and definitely not a 64 dB unit. I would like to follow the recommendation of my contractor, since he has experience in condensers. But even for my research, I found that the 2 brands he recommends, Carrier and in particular American Standard, have excellent repair history ratings, are known brands and not fly-by-night companies. Condensers are expensive units to repair and replace. Any intelligent consumer would choose a reputable company with a good repair record and warranty. What about just installing a more efficient and quieter condenser? Our air handler has only a capacity of 13 SEER. Any higher SEER would not increase its efficiency, so why spend $2,000 to $4,000 more? We would certainly not be allowed to take advantage of tax rebates because our handler cannot rise to the level of the condenser. Also, such units would have a larger footprint and larger space requirement from the wall of our house, thus would be even closer to the lot line, negating in part the decibel advantage, and moreover, impeding traffic on the west side from north to south and vice versa. Why not install an enclosure for the condenser? A 13-SEER condenser needs airflow, 5 feet minimum above and at least 1 foot behind the unit and 2-3 feet on the other 3 sides. More efficient units need even more surround space. I researched several soundproofing online sites and contacted 2 of them regarding specifics about the products and recommendations. I was impressed by the assessment of one of the technicians. Yes, on paper the barrier that we talked about had a reduction range between 10 and 20 decibels, but there was no way of knowing if putting up the sound barrier would achieve that range until it's actually installed because of the way sound can travel according to wind and surfaces around it. He felt we should not invest in the expensive barrier without conducting some sort of test first. He suggested we put up plywood sheeting first to test if it would abate the sound of Mr. Side or my west neighbor side. Catch-22, install the condenser and then do the experiment. Considering the cost for the simplest solution, sound-absorbing blanket behind the unit and a sound curtain attached to the fence at a height of 6 to 8 feet, it is definitely an expensive proposition with dubious results. There is also a zoning ordinance about fences about 6 feet. Moreover, when I actually read the fine print about the barrier in question, I realized that it was not just a situation of hanging it by grommets from the fence. To be effective, the 30-foot-long barrier had to have absolutely no open space at the bottom, and it was suggested by the manufacturer that an additional barrier should be built along the lower edge. A complicated installation, difficult to remove after the summer season, and therefore, if subjected to inclement weather, not long-lived. I have also to remark that some companies recommended instead a 4-side enclosure, and one site from the UK, a 5-side enclosure, all saying something different about height and spacing. It seems to me that these solutions are applicable mainly for industrial and commercial users, which can afford to experiment with expensive barriers in order to try to abate far greater and more prolonged noises than what our modest summer condenser would produce. In my handout, I did mention the feasibility of ordering a small sound-absorbing blanket to put directly behind the unit against our house. That would reduce, if true, 3 dB. However, I'm not sure how thick the blanket would be, which will require us to be allowed to move the unit closer to the lot line to account for the thickness of the blanket. This would be like, I don't know, maybe 3 to 6 inches. The issue of possible complaints of future residents of 1728 Livingston was raised last time. Let me point out the condenser case approved by the zoning board on 2230 Asbury Avenue in the records, ZBA 11Z-MNV-0042. Member Gingo states, I quote, "Board has taken neighbor testimony into consideration. If board would take track of speculating what future neighbors would think, there would be no reason to admit present neighbor testimony, end of quote. I do remind you, our neighbors prefer the unit to be on the proposed location." Our situation regarding future neighbors was additionally compared to that of Autobahn residential neighbors. I read the transcript concerning Autobahn. The car wash noise in question is higher than our proposed unit. It exceeds 77 decibel, and it is produced 6 days a week year-round. One resident described hearing the noise throughout his house with the windows closed. Also, don't forget the additional noise of the high-speed acceleration of test cars in the alley, another issue the neighbors object to, in addition to safety factor, nuisance parking, and even destruction of property. No wonder those neighbors object. They use a noise dB as a legal springboard to address much larger issues regarding Autobahn. It is not a zoning issue comparable to mine. The issue of condenser noise is important. We agree that citizens should be protected from undue noise pollution, but we do not consider our proposed unit location to create a nuisance in our neighborhood. On August 15, 2013, Mr. Murphy, the building code official, granted us a modification to the 2003 International Mechanical Code, thus releasing us from the 55 decibel requirement. He stated in the document, quote, "From my experience, the noise level in the natural environment on a windy day exceeds 55 dB. Therefore, any mechanical noise will exceed 50 dB at most property lines in the city of Evanston." End of quote. In my neighborhood, I verified what Mr. Murphy described. Legally placed condensers, meaning they're at least 10 feet from the lot line, do exceed the dB law by 12 to 15 dB, and thus even exceed our proposed 65 dB at lot line. Finally, Mr. Murphy mentions that the code was adopted by the city in 2005. In the condenser zoning appeals proceedings that I was able to access, dated 2007 to 2013, I never saw the application of the 55 dB law. Neither have I seen that requirement in the zoning permit or variance application for new condensers, nor does the city check the dB level of existing condensers, many installed without any permit. My husband will bring up in his talk the issue permits and compliances with the law in Evanston. I will only mention that non-compliance is what you are actually encouraging when reasonable variance requests are given such a difficult time in being approved, and that is why probably so many people avoid City Hall. Certainly it isn't the permit fee, which at least in our neighborhood is not a terrible hardship. One other issue raised by Ms. Weinberg was that we should not consider patio location walkway as a hardship, and that her statement that home improvement projects often do have collateral damage, such as loss of a patio and or landscaping such as the pond. Let me remind you that the patio, diminutive as it may be, looms large in our lives. It was an attractive feature when we bought the house 32 years ago, probably built in the 1950s. It is not just a series of flagstone, but a concrete construction that would require serious muscle to replace. Irrespective of work or cost, the suggestion we lose our landscaping and pond and patios collateral damage diminishes what is very important to us, that is, the enjoyment of nature in our backyard. It is hardship to ask us to eliminate what gives us reason to continue living in this property, despite the detrimental changes that have occurred in our opinion, such as increased urbanization of the city, a louder stadium than we moved in, and a louder Green Bay Road and Metro caused by the removal of the trees that acted as an effective sound barrier along Green Bay Road. We're still suffering also from the loss of our own trees in the front yard, which used to give us cherished sense of privacy and retreat. But that happened because of a derecho, an act of nature. Now it was suggested we eliminate what we have left by the zoning board, what we hold dear in our backyard. Even if we did not care about our pond, plantings, and birds, which are intrinsically interrelated, we haven't even completed re-landscaping our damaged front yard. Unlike many residents in our area, we cannot afford to hire crews to do the work. We always do it ourselves. We could not tackle physically, emotionally, and financially the additional destruction of our backyard. That would be true hardship. Finally, I want to briefly address, in previous granting of variances, I listed a few in my documentation. I noticed that in several cases where the variance was not allowed, the neighbors objected, such as in the 1811 Keeney Street, ZBA 10ZMJV-0114 case. Our neighbors do not. Furthermore, the owner at Keeney Street asked for a variance on the grounds that the unit was, quote, less unsightly than the previous legal location, end of quote. Hardly a hardship, excuse the pun. In some of the cases you passed, moreover, the requirement for hardship was not really a major point to have to be met, such as the aforementioned case on 2230 Asbury, where the applicant clearly states that in the legal place, it would be an eyesore, not exactly a hardship. I will sum up. Among reliable brands, I chose the quietest unit I could find, even if it is more expensive. I remind you that if you deem necessary that I install a small sound-absorbing barrier in the back of it, 3 dB reduction according to manufacturer, the requirement 3.5 feet could then be adjusted to accommodate the thickness of the barrier. The noise at lot line without barrier should be 65 dB, according to calculations I submitted, therefore within the range of normal conversation. The sound reaching the outside window of our neighbor to the west would be much lower, as shown by the charts enclosed, and dramatically lower with his windows closed inside the house. I doubt he would hear the unit at all, especially in his bedroom, which faces Livingston Street, therefore the north of the house, his north of the house. The unit would not run constantly, except in extreme years such as we had in 2011, 2012. The first uncomfortable heat and humidity wave usually occurs in July and is over by the end of August. In the house, if the house can be kept cool and dry during the day, it may not require AC activation during most nights to reach the cooler night temperature outside. At present, due to our low ceilings upstairs and the absence of a real attic above our second floor, the heat and humidity accumulated upstairs in the day does not dissipate fast enough at night to make it comfortable to sleep. We cannot install overhead fans because they would decapitate us since the ceiling is so short. We're definitely not installing a loud industrial machine that runs 12 months a year, so please do not compare our case to commercial enterprises. The vast majority of residents in our neighborhood and all those living on our block have central AC, so it is quite conceivable that their unit will run when ours runs. Windows will be kept closed at those times. Moreover, it would reduce our allergies to mold and pollen to have central AC. Also, it would be a positive factor if the house is put up for sale in the future to have central AC as the rest of our neighbors do. Our neighbors do not object to the location proposed. In fact, they prefer that location. To place a unit in our backyard would be hardship for us. Let me recap. It is not an option we can consider. I listed the various points regarding impeded traffic on the patio, impeded access to the west side and large area under the porch, storage area, heat and noise into our living quarters to the 12 windows facing the patio. We have no reason to change them since they give us many benefits, large view of the yard out of the 4 picture windows, and fresh air and safety when the wooden louvered windows are open. Other hardships I can list are winter salt and ice damaging the unit in the location close to the east gutter in the backyard, a safety hazard of the line snaking under the porch in the area used as a garden supply storage place, possible reduction in efficiency because of the additional length of the line from the handler to the patio, unsightliness in a small landscape yard, and visual and noise nuisance to both adjacent neighbors when they are on their decks and yards. Finally, Mr. Murphy, the building inspection service official, does not consider the proposed location and unit, in his words, to be any environmental noise impact that will lessen the quality of life for us or our neighbor in the proposed location. Thank you, and please consider all of the issues I have discussed.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. Does anyone have questions for Ms. Russell at this point? If not, you can be seated. And your husband, was that correct? And if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm John Russell. My wife Evie and I own the property at 1724 Livingston, where we're asking you to allow us to install a condenser for air conditioning. Whenever we've made improvements to our house in the past, we have always obeyed the law, applied for the required permits, and had the necessary inspections made. That's why we're here now. We may be naive, but we've done this even when contractors or well-meaning persons have suggested that we don't. We are aware that not everybody does, and so we looked at similar condensers in our neighborhood. We have confirmed at least 10 violations of your rules. As you know, every installation of a condenser requires a permit and the payment of an inspection fee. It also requires the filing of a copy of the plat for the land and indication on it exactly where the condenser will be. We have investigated city records for every one of the non-compliant condensers in our neighborhood. We found that none of them have permits. We are not asking you to correct or condemn these illegal installations. We have talked to the neighbors involved, and they do not object to them. It's the spirit of the law that matters, not the letter. The law is meant to protect the neighbors, and the neighbors do not object to the installations. However, you must realize that by allowing these illegal installations to occur, you reward people for breaking the law. People know you don't look for illegal installations, so they are encouraged to ignore your regulations. We came here to ask you for a variance because we are trying to obey the law, unreasonable as it may seem to some people. Our neighbors guided us in the choice of the location of our condenser, and our neighbors do not object to it. We are asking you to follow the spirit of the law. Please grant the variance and don't punish us for trying to be good citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, is there anyone else who would like to speak?
My name is Kevin Cito. I live to the west at 1728 Livingston. As I said last time, there is no 1726. Who knows why? But I'm immediately to the west. I certainly agree with Mrs. Russell that noise is a key. And when I submitted my email to the Madam Secretary, I indicated then that noise was always been my concern. And I just want to raise some observations about process, I guess. As a lawyer, I can't help but focus on some of these questions about how this record evolved. So one of the comments that's been made here is that I have windowless walls, and that is not the circumstance at all. I have some pictures if anybody wants to see them, but I'm perplexed about how that came into the record. Mr. Murphy did not talk to me, and yet he seems to be talking a lot about how there's no window or door in the immediate vicinity. So where I'm coming from is this. I said to Mrs. Russell at the beginning when she approached me that I have no problems with any box, as it were, on her side of the fence. And my only concern has ever been noise, and I'll say it again, I certainly prefer that there be less noise than more noise, and I think there's going to be less noise if this is allowed, if the unit is between the houses than if it is in what I gather zoning might otherwise require, namely that it would be at the south of the Russell house, somewhere perhaps in the requisite setback, but yet closer to the deck that I have on the south of my house. So my point is, I'm not exactly sure how people have reached any conclusions that they have about these so-called windowless walls, because that's not the circumstance. But I want to reiterate again that I think the Russells are approaching this in good faith about having all intentions to have the noise be less than it might otherwise be. But I wish in the future, Mr. Murphy, if he's making the observations and comments that he is, that he would speak to the neighbors involved as opposed to just the applicant. Perhaps that is completely outside the purview of this board, and I appreciate that, but I was a little surprised to receive the letter that he did send in that seemed to have as many accuracies as inaccuracies as to what we were trying to accomplish here. So in summary, I want to say, yes, I do still agree with the idea of the location between the houses. I remain cautiously optimistic that the noise will not be a problem. There was some talk about how maybe there would be a recording with the recorder of deeds of some issue or another, and I just want to go on record right now as saying I certainly don't want anything recorded on my property about something that was allegedly said or done, or something that I allegedly acquiesced in, or something like that. I think the board's action stands however it stands, but I'm perplexed about the idea that there would be any recording with the recorder of deeds. So I'm happy to answer any questions beyond that, but that's where I'm coming from here.
I do have one question for you. So this idea of windowless walls, I think what I think is trying to be communicated is that directly across from the Russell's condenser? Is it a wall without windows for a 10-foot stretch, let's say?
Can I show you the pictures?
Love to.
Yes, thanks.
Need to
That was my
exhibit.
question, too.
So
Mrs. Russell is correct in that I have rarely opened this door. If I've opened it once in the 5 years I've lived there, maybe. It's not like it's open all the time by any stretch. But I do have a window that's a small window that's off my kitchen, which I open. If you look in this picture, you'll see it. It's this tiny window. The next window, I don't know that I've ever opened it. Yeah, certainly.
I want to get a couple things into the record here. So I've received 3 photos from you.
Yes?
One that appears to have sort of what would be called a Juliet balcony
That's what I call it.
on there, which I'm labeling, of course I've labeled these wrong. That's applicant B. Applicant's Exhibit A shows a double set of windows along a wall that then there is a portion of the house that juts out at the back.
Yes, sir.
And that's applicant's Exhibit A. And then applicant Exhibit C appears to be the same wall, but taken slightly more forward on the property.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Did you take these pictures yourself?
Tonight, yes, I did.
Okay, this evening. That answers my next question. So these are now in the record.
So my question is relative to these windows, where does the air conditioning condenser, where is it proposed to go?
In great candor, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Perhaps
Does
we could-
Ms. Russell got to know, because you know everything. Yeah. I mean, you know a lot about all the stuff. You've done an amazing amount of research. It's really commendable.
As I mentioned, I didn't mean to be disrespectful, Mr. Sider. I never noticed that little window off his kitchen because, okay, the condenser is facing a windowless wall, except for, as I mentioned in the documentation, a basement glass block.
Oh, yes.
Okay? That obviously is not being opened, and it's the basement. Then 6 feet,
So Ms. Russell, could you just point for us on this picture? Yep. Show us where it is. Please. Thank you.
the condenser is facing this wall here,
Okay.
and it's 6 feet away from his kitchen windows, which I've never seen them open, and there's ivy growing all over the one that it would be closest. No, it's facing this wall. Sorry, this wall here.
This is
Facing-
that wall is the wall
Well,
that's
it's-
closest to,
I'm trying to think. It's right here. It's right here. It's facing this wall here.
okay. So it's across from your kitchen, but not across from the kitchen
No,
window?
It's across this wall. The kitchen door starts 6 feet away from, if the condenser, box.
So I think she's saying it's across from this.
If the condenser is here, let's say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
then it's facing this wall here. You would have to go 6 feet this way to meet across the beginning of the kitchen doors.
I'm just going to do something really quickly, and we'll
Yes.
eventually get this into the record, right?
Okay.
So there is a box here for his house, and it goes like
Yeah,
this.
I've shown the picture.
So this is your kitchen?
Okay, so this is what it faces. Box is exactly here, and this is what it faces.
If she shows it, we get it.
If I show it, yes.
Yes, so just so you know, I'm going to have Melissa take this.
She has that. It's in the record. This picture is in the record.
Not that
Are
close,
are all
but
of the pictures on there the pictures that you submitted to me?
No, but this one is in the
But
record.
that one is.
Just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
It would be in
Most of
the,
them are in the record.
that would be in the packet from the last meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
So what I'm going to ask is that at the end of the meeting, we can take this to make sure that everything.
Yes, you can take this.
Okay, you can use it to show her.
Okay, so it does face the wall. Okay, so if you go straight, you face this.
Right.
And out down here is the basement.
And so that wall that we're looking at in picture D on your board, is this wall here, right
Yes,
here?
Yes.
Okay,
So you need to go from here, from the unit.
Right.
6 feet to meet the beginning of the kitchen doors,
okay.
which have, I assumed also because of the ivy covering it, that it's
Okay.
not something to be open.
So the question, so,
Then on the other side,
Yep.
okay, so you see this is recessed.
Yes.
That's why I never saw it until one day, and I did mention it to you, that I did note when we talked last time, because it was slightly open. So I didn't realize that because facing from my wall, it's recessed.
We
it's
might be
parallel.
getting in trouble here if this isn't getting picked up.
But the sound and then the sound would, it's not directly going into that. It's hitting this, right? It's hitting this wall. And this is a kitchen wall.
Right.
Okay, so although it is a place where one spends time, like I know that I spend time in my breakfast room, it is not a sleeping area or anything. this area here is one floor for most of it, and then raises up again further up, and then there's what used to be Tom Brown's piano room. I don't know what you have there now. Library, right. To reach this window here, and the window above it, which is a bathroom, I believe, you need to go another, I have the measurements written down. I think it's 24.5 feet away from my unit, if you consider 3.5 feet to the fence, 7 feet to the wall of his house, the distance this way, and then the distance going inward.
And can I be clear about where the distance is 7 feet to the wall of his house? Is this closest wall right here?
Yes, that's 7 feet.
So this is another 4 feet back, so that's
Right.
another 11 feet. So
Right.
this wall is about 11-ish feet from your
Right,
property line?
Right.
Okay.
I took the liberty of measuring it with a tape
And Mr.
measure.
Cito, are you comfortable with it being in that location versus just sliding it further east or west or whichever back, so it's further away from your house line?
Well, in answer to that question,
Let him talk into the mic.
the only window I have open with any regularity whatsoever is the small window in the kitchen that cranks open
Okay,
at an angle. The others, I
Right.
agree with Mrs. Russell.
it opens like this.
Yes, are ones that are not opened, I don't think ever.
So are you comfortable with it being in this location versus down here? Is this a better location for you from a noise perspective? So you would move it more in front of these windows? So it would be across from those windows instead, since he doesn't open those windows? Or even further back and have it be across from
The only
that?
reason why I thought it might
Right.
be better here, the only reason why I thought it might be better here,
Right.
again, even if I said that we should not consider future neighbors, is that this is a one-wall addition, so the sound most probably will rise above it, whereas here it will probably impact the windows, and so it will be louder because glass transmits sound waves when it's impacted directly. I don't think this would be impacted directly because the unit is across from here, not across from this window.
Right.
It's at an angle. And
Right, we understand,
Yeah, right.
we understand
Okay,
your
that's-
perspective. The
yeah.
question is, Mr. Cito.
that was the idea.
Right.
And then I did consider, what about moving it further down?
Sure.
And then again, it's a 2-floor house, and there are rooms above, and there are windows. I thought that was the best location. I'm sorry.
So
about the
knowing
window.
everything that you know now, how do you feel about the proposed location there or sliding it?
Again, with great candor, I'm not sure it makes that much difference.
Okay.
I think that small arguments could be made either way in terms of benefits, and it's not clear to me, frankly, not unlike what Mrs. Russell said, that there's unfortunately a little bit of experimentation in terms of what would be better, and I think it's hard to know until after it's installed. So I know I'm not giving you much of a direct answer, but it's not clear to me. I can tell you, though, with great certainty, the only window that I use with any regularity is that one off the kitchen that is the one that cranks open in that fashion.
Okay.
Could I ask Mr. Cito another question?
Could we get you to move sort of back toward the center?
Oh, thanks.
Mr. Cito, do you have central air conditioning in your house?
Well, I bought my house 5 years ago, and it has a strange situation about air conditioning. It has hot water heat in the oldest part of the house, and then it has two air conditioning units for these lower level parts, and those would be, I guess, considered central air in the sense that they work off the forced air heating units for the additions to the house. So, like I say, I have 3 units, although frankly they end up being 2 small units. One is on the south part of the house, and 2 are on the west, which there's an alley there that, and they're on the alley side.
Okay. Do you run those when it's hot?
Well, I probably have run them, the one that is the bedrooms for upstairs, I've probably run that probably 5 or 6 times this summer so far. Of course, we've been very fortunate with a cool summer. But I don't tend to run the smaller units only because they're in a lower level area, and I always thought it was kind of nuts to try to cool my kitchen. It didn't seem to be very efficient.
So, right. So when you open that, I guess kind of where I'm going with this is when you open that kitchen window, is it because it's a really hot day and you want to get some air flowing, or do you open it to like let the bacon smell out, or?
Some of both, actually.
Okay.
But again, I want to make it clear. I use that kitchen. I live by myself. My kids visit once in a blue moon. Live by myself. Maybe I'm cooking at night, but otherwise, I'm not in my kitchen with any frequency. And it's as much to open the air to allow some air to pass through, because I have a sliding glass patio type screen door, and the air passes from north to south very nicely. And it takes the kitchen smells and the heat and dissipates that pretty nicely. So does that answer your question?
Thanks, yeah.
So just quickly again, I'll say the window that is of concern is that one off the kitchen. The others, I agree with Mrs. Russell that they just haven't really been used. And again, I certainly would prefer that the unit be between the houses, where I think it's going to create less problem, if that is the board's view that it would be allowed, than it would be to have it on the back of the unit, because then my deck is there and I'm seeing and hearing it a lot more than I am otherwise if it's where it is. Precisely where it would be, Ms. Burns, that's not crystal clear to me, because when I looked at the materials that I received early on, I had a hard time trying to figure out those distances without taking a tape measure, and even then I wasn't sure about standing on my side and figuring out where that unit would be. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Yes, Ms. Russell.
As I said before, there is this option. It's not exorbitantly expensive. It's about $400, which I would be willing to buy, to order this blanket, sound-absorbing blanket that could go behind the unit. But then, of course, I would need to have to be allowed to put it there, because the unit has to be 1 foot away from the wall. So if the blanket takes, let's say, 3 inches, I will lose 3 inches. If it takes 6 inches, I don't know. I haven't asked the manufacturer how thick it is, because it would be hanging from. I could hang it from grommets from the brick wall. It would certainly help with the sound. Like often with sounds, it's like it also bounces back. So that could help. Another thing that I did not mention, just occurred to me now, is that I'm not going to put the unit on concrete, because my manufacturer recommended I put it on, I don't know what material it is, some sort of rubber. That absorbs noise too. Additionally, the unit can come with feet. The feet will also reduce vibrations. So I am really trying as much as I can to do the utmost. And if it should come in the future that Mr. Saido finds the obnoxious, then maybe we can think of putting something in front of it. I just don't think that 30-foot, 8 feet tall barrier is appropriate, but maybe something smaller. Maybe also growing, like right now I put it in the wrong place because but I can move it like a little trellis and grow vegetation on top. In any case, the unit is totally invisible, right? From that location to everybody, unless you are really standing close to it. Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything to bring before the board on this issue? If not, we will go ahead and close our record and begin deliberation. And I will open it up for comments from the board.
So let me start. Since I was here for the whole thing, so one of obviously my main concerns is the noise, because it can create such a nuisance, a potential nuisance for the neighbors. Ms. Russell has done a tremendous amount of research on products and trying to get things as quiet as possible. It seems to me that she's a good neighbor, and that if Mr. Cito does find it objectionable, she'll go ahead and put up that blanket at some future date. I'm not sure it makes sense to do that now. And my stance on the noise issue particularly has changed, given that we have an exemption from the building department.
That is wonderful to hear. I don't really have any other comment.
Comments?
Standards.
We're going to go through the standards that we have to agree to in order to grant any sort of a major variance. So give us just a moment while we pull those out. All right. The standards are found in 63812, Standards for Major Variations. The first one is the requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of adjoining properties. We have heard from the neighbor who would be most directly impacted by the installation of the air conditioning unit at the proposed location. And he sort of agrees that this is probably the best place to put it, as opposed to putting it into the backyard, which will be closer to his deck, which he uses more often than his kitchen, which sounds like it will be the most impacted room in the house right now. So I believe this standard has been met.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Unless I hear otherwise, I will assume agreement. Number two, the requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. I believe the zoning ordinance intends to reduce the amount of noise that is created when an air conditioner condensing unit is placed on a property, which is why it's required to be 10 feet away. It appears that this location has been well cited, and that the applicant is willing to also take whatever steps are necessary in order to abate any noise that is there. And so I believe that this particular standard has been met as well. Number three, the alleged hardship or practical difficulty is peculiar to the property. We have received documentation and heard that because of the particular way that the property is landscaped and has been for a number of years, that placing this in some of the preferred locations would require having to remove both hardscape and or planting material. And so I believe that based on the fact that the property has been landscaped the way it has for a number of years, that does create a particular hardship for this property. Number four, the property owner would suffer a particular hardship or practical difficulty as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations were to be carried out. Again, going back to what I just said, the fact that it would require having to remove a large portion of hardscape, as well as having an impact into the ecological environment that they have created in their backyard. I believe this standard has been met. Number five, the purpose of the variation is not based exclusively upon a desire to extract additional income from the property. I believe that this standard has been met because I think this pertains more to the fact that they've lost some major trees, and it has created a situation in which the house tends to be heating up more than it used to, and they're looking for a little relief from the heat that could be coming. from the lack of those trees. So I believe the standard has been met. Number 6, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. Again, going back to what has just been said, the loss of the trees and the fact that landscaping has been in place for a number of years does not seem that the particular hardship that we're talking about was created by the owners of the property at this time. So I believe that standard has been met. And number 7, the requested variation requires the least deviation from the applicable regulation among the feasible options identified before the ZBA issues its decision or recommendation of the variation. Again, I believe this one has been met. It appears that there have been some locations that have been scoped on this, and this appears to be one of the best locations for the property. And the fact that the owner to the adjoining property also doesn't see a problem with this is definitely a plus in the favor of this application. Having gone through the standards, is there a motion before the board?
I'm confused. Are we moving now to, are we just restating the motion without the condition? Is that?
If that is the way the board wants to move forward,
That's
then
how I would
yes,
move.
that
I would make
be-
that motion then.
I think that Ms. Burns, who was the one who had concerns about sound, seems to,
The only one left over from the last vote.
So go ahead.
so someone has to make a motion.
Oh, you want me to do it?
I don't care who does it.
Okay, I move in the matter 13 ZMJV 0067 for 1724 Livingston Street, that we approve the request, the side yard setback of 3.5 feet for an air conditioning condensing unit.
Is there a
I
second?
second that.
There is a motion and second for the side yard setback of 3.5 feet for the addition of an air conditioning condensing unit. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition and 4 ayes, the motion is carried. Good luck with your project, and thank you for all of your due diligence and work.
Just one question.
Yes.
Regarding the blanket, that if there should be need for it, then what about that little distance? What should I do about that? Should I place the unit a few inches closer to the fence to begin with?
I think our recommendation, and correct me if I'm speaking out of place for anyone, would be to place it where it has been requested, and if additional abatement is needed, that be addressed not necessarily from the behind of the unit, but from a trellis or from plantings in front of the unit to buffer the sound coming out from it. Is that correct?
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I also think those blankets are actually really relatively thin, so if Mr. Cito has issues, my guess is you can just slide it back behind it and it not be a problem.
Thank you. Moving on to our second case for this evening, which is a new business for 1900 Asbury Avenue. Is the applicant here? All right, I will ask Melissa to please read that into the record then.
Mary May Toussaint, lessee, applies for a special use permit for a resale establishment, Minot Chic Boutique, at 1900 Asbury Avenue. 1900 Asbury Avenue is located in the B1 Business District, which requires a special use permit for resale establishments to operate. Zoning Code Section 6923. The Zoning Board of Appeals makes a recommendation to City Council, the determining body for this case. Documents submitted as part of the record include special use application submitted July 25th, 2013, letter of interest, plat of survey dated May 30th, 2002, zoning analysis, standards form, site plan, zoning map of property, images of property, Spark draft meeting minutes of August 7th, 2013, letter of concern, and additionally one letter of concern that came in today that has been passed out to all board members.
Thank you. Could I get everyone who plans to speak on this matter to be sworn in, please? If you'd raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings? Thank you. If you could tell us your name and about your project, please.
My name is Mary Toussaint. I go by May Toussaint for shorter. Anyway, my no chic boutique will be a resale shop. High-end, basically, resale shop. It will consist of a little bit of everything that you can think of.
So let me help you out by asking some
Okay.
questions. So when you take goods, how do you get merchandise? Are people dropping things off? Or is it consignment? Do you go out and find things?
I go out and find things.
Okay.
And mostly they will probably drop it off, but it's mostly all, so far, all from family members. So
Okay.
it comes to my home and then I bring it there. I don't have any other services delivering anything to me as of yet.
So you don't envision people in the community dropping bags of clothing at your front door unattended?
No,
Okay.
that's not the type of business I will be running.
Just asking,
That's fine.
because we know that happens elsewhere.
Oh, okay.
And I'm sure that's one of the primary concerns in the
right.
neighborhood is that you have these bags of clothes sitting there that then get opened up in the middle of the night and then strewn about the neighborhood. So that is one of the concerns. The other question I have for you is on the building. Are you taking over the entire space of the building?
No, it's just a portion of it. The
Is it just
Emerson-
the west portion?
Yes,
Okay, so it's where in the picture we have the image of the barber and
The
the
barber
tight
shop,
cut. Yeah.
correct.
Okay, so that's what's going on there. Okay. And then we got a letter from one of your neighbors,
okay.
right, from Mr. Roberts, expressing some concern about work going on in that space, potentially without a permit. Is that work that you're doing, or is that work the landlord is doing? Who's doing that work?
I am doing inside. It's the interior decoration, the decorating of the place.
Okay.
I don't have any, I don't believe I need a permit.
I think my understanding from staff is that while Ms. Toussaint is doing some work, the landlord is also doing a large amount of work, and there were no permits issued. And
To the landlord?
To the landlord, and a stop work has been issued on the property, correct?
Correct. May, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were explaining that you plan to do some painting and add some shelving and some flooring.
Correct.
Those are items that would not require permit. What the city has seen is that there's some conduit and looks like there's some electrical work going on in the property, and that is the reason for the stop work order. And I believe
I have no electrical work, no plumbing work. All the work I'm doing is inside decorating.
so.
And
With,
how the merchandise will be set, how inside will be set, in floor.
So with the work that city officials have seen, only from the outside, we have not been inside the building yet.
Right.
It appears that that is not work that May has been doing, but
Okay.
that would be
The
property
landlord.
owner work.
Okay. Okay. So we also have a floor plan of yours. So as I look at the floor plan, you've got a nice selling space, some office, countertop, fitting room, and a hot water, and a mechanical room. So is that mechanical room already built? Are all these,
That's, all of those
they're all
were
already
there.
existing? So
Yes.
there's a little room back there with a curtain on it already, and there's a room with the water heater in it?
It's a door with the water heater.
Okay, so there's a door with the water heater?
And
Okay.
there's a door for the electrical as well.
And the office and the lunchroom already exist?
The lunchroom already exists. It's just a little square space.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right, it's just a room. It's a
Yeah.
room with a door.
exactly.
Okay. Okay,
It actually opens to the back door, to the side door,
okay.
that room.
Okay, what are your projected hours of operation?
Probably 10 to 7,
And will
but I'm
that-
looking at maybe 10 to 6. It depends, but those were the hours that I had requested for. And on Sunday, 12 to 4 or 12 to 5.
Okay. And then how many employees do you project to have working at any one time?
At this particular moment, I will not have any employees. It will be family members running it. So it'd probably be about 3 of us at a time.
And does the property come with parking, or?
There is no parking for the public, but there is one parking, which is a driveway.
So there's a parking space
There's
that's
a
part of your
parking
lease
space,
with
yes,
the landlord?
yes.
Ms. Toussaint, I think I read that you have 30 years of experience. Did I read that right?
Yes.
So can you give us a little bit about your experience?
I've been
Please,
doing
thank you.
retail since I was basically between 16
Okay.
and still doing it. Fashion is my passion. I can't get rid of it. However, I have worked, oh my Lord, basically everywhere from TJ Maxx to Bloomingdale's
Right.
to Nordstrom, Pam's Young Folks. I don't know if you guys were familiar with that, Water Tower, T.H. Mendy, Ward, Sears. I mean, I could go on and on and on. So as far as retail and running a business, I am well aware of
So
everything.
you've been a store manager
Yes,
at those
at those locations.
at those
all
locations?
the stores.
Okay. And is this your first
That's
resale?
my first resale, my own.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be my first.
And you have a year lease with the
With the
landlord?
Yes.
And do you plan any improvements to the outside?
Oh, most definitely.
Really? You're not going to leave it that way?
No. It was not my intentions. It was not
Can you
at
tell
all.
us a little bit about what you're planning on doing on the outside?
Well, I had walked down the block west of my property.
Yes.
Of my store. And I liked what the neighbor had done with the
Flowers.
flowers and all
Yeah.
the decor, the exterior decoration. So I spoke with the owner, and I said that I have permission to speak with him to see what I can do in front of my stores, because I wanted to work with him and for the neighbor to help me out a little bit, because I like what he did.
So your vision is sort of that to
Yeah, so we
spruce it
can
up and
keep
make
it in
much-
sync. I don't want to go
Nice.
in and do something totally different while his look different. I'd like for it to have a nice flow from mine to his. And I did plan on painting the garage. I mean, just cleaning up, inside and outside.
Currently, the property is vacant, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
So there's no one in this particular portion of the building?
No.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? If not, is there anyone else who would like to speak to us this evening about this?
May I just say that there's parking, you asked about parking?
Yes, can I get you to a microphone, please?
There is a city parking just west of there, off the alley, that belongs to the city. So there is
okay.
parking there, as well as street parking on Asbury, Emerson, and Wesley. So it won't interfere with parking. Parking is a premium on the west side, so I just want to make sure you know that there won't be an impact of parking there at all.
Okay.
And that building is quite large, so I'm not sure, and I didn't have a chance to go by today and look to see what the city is seeing. I'm wondering if they are looking in the front part of the building rather than the back part, where the shop is actually going to be.
It was in the back part.
Oh, okay, great. All right. I'm going to take a look tomorrow myself.
I saw another hand in the back.
Hi, my name is Lynn Toussaint, and I'm her sister. No, I'm not her twin, but People mistake us all the time. I don't know why. But anyway, what I wanted to add is that, May has been doing this for so long, and this is 7 years in the making, so it's not like something that just woke up and say, oh, let's just do a resale shop. We have items probably vintage in planning that have become vintage, I should say, in trying to plan for this. And also, this is, she said resale. It is a resale shop, but it will also have some new items for those who are interested in buying new things, new clothing, new children's items also. So that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment? If not, I would just ask Ms. Toussaint if there's anything you would like to say in summary. There doesn't have to be.
All I can say, Minnow Chic Boutique will be a great resale shop in that community.
Thank you. With that, we will close the record and begin our deliberations. Are there any general thoughts from the board?
I'm excited about adding some life to that little strip of the street. I think that's really fantastic, and I think having clothing there will get a lot of people in and out and get a lot of traffic there. So I think that's going to be really nice for the neighborhood.
Yeah, I have no problem with special use permit for this property. I'm a little concerned about, let's just kind of make sure that there's not electrical work done without people knowing what they're doing, but other than that.
All right, you can have a seat if you like.
Thank you.
Yeah. With that, this being a special use, we will be making a recommendation to City Council. And once again, as we did in the last case, we have a series of standards for special use that we have to go through in order to make our recommendation. So unless anyone has anything to add, I will just go ahead and start going through the standards. So the standards for special use, number one, the requested special use is on the list of special uses in the zoning ordinance. This property is zoned B1 Business District, and we do find that there is a special use listed for resale establishments to operate in this district, so that standard has been met. Number two, the requested special use in keeping with the purposes and policies of the comprehensive general plan and zoning ordinance. This is really poorly worded. The applicant should be able to state that the requested special use is not counter to the goals in the general comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance. Again, this being a listed special use, I feel that this standard has been met. Number three, the special use will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with the cumulative effect of various special uses of all types in the immediate neighborhood and the effect of the proposed type of special use upon the city as a whole. As Member Burns stated just a little bit ago, it would be very nice to see some business come into what is a vacant storefront, and this particular type of business seems to go perfectly into this type of a space and meet the needs of people in the neighborhood, and people will come from around the city, I would think, to a unique destination such as this. So I believe that standard has been met. Number four, the requested special use does not interfere or diminish the value of property in the neighborhood. Actually, I believe it will probably do the opposite, again, taking a vacant building which has overgrown weeds and does not look the best in terms of curb appeal, and turning it into a thriving and functioning business definitely would have a positive impact on the property, and so I believe this standard has been met. Number five, the requested special use can be adequately served by public facilities and services. This is along a major thoroughfare through Evanston, And as the alderman had pointed out, there also is a city lot nearby that has parking. So even though this is a tight area at times, this small of a business is not going to generate long-term parking on the street, and people will use it as a destination to go in, browse, and not hang around all day in. So I believe this standard has been met. The requested special use does not cause undue traffic congestion. Going back to what I just said, this is a major thoroughfare, so it's designed to have traffic come in along it, and there does seem to be adequate parking in the neighborhood. Number 7, the requested special use preserves significant historical and architectural resources. I don't believe this building has any architectural resources or any significant history to it. But the fact that it will be, again, fixed up and made into a solid business is definitely going to help the neighborhood. Number 8, the requested special use preserves significant natural and environmental features. Again, there doesn't appear to be any natural or environmental features particular to this property, and so I believe that standard has been met. And number 9, the requested special use complies with all other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other ordinances except those needing to be modified through plan development. This is, again, a permitted special use and doesn't seem to have a large strain on city resources and not a highly regulated business, so I believe that that standard has been met. With that, is there a motion on 1900 Asbury Avenue?
Sure. Oops. I move in the matter 13 ZMJV-0071, 1900 Asbury Avenue, that we recommend to City Council the approval of a special use permit for a resale establishment. Oh, do we need a?
One thing that we have not discussed is hours. Do we feel we need to place hours on this particular type of business in this neighborhood?
Other resale establishments have had listed hours of operation.
I think we should.
So let's hold that motion for just a minute.
So the proposed hours of operation were,
I believe it was 10 to 7.
10 to 7,
10 to
Monday
7.
through Saturday, and 11 to 5 on Sundays.
What do we usually do for a retail? Let's just do that.
Can't
Keep
say
it
we normally have
consistent.
special
I don't think
use
we
as a
have it.
retail.
I think we're,
What about that Kazoom? What do we approve the hours as?
Yeah, what did we do for Kazoom? Because that's perfect.
The same thing. Yeah, I wasn't here.
Oh, I can't remember. Look it up real quick.
I mean, I'm fine, actually, Alderman Holmes.
I was going to say the last business that would be in that area
Oh, with Shrimp Max.
would have been, yeah, Shrimp.
Mm-hmm,
Absolutely, and that was a, if I remember correctly, it was a 10,
Well,
9
we
to
gave
10
them
p.m.
later hours
Later
because it
hours
was a
because they were-
restaurant.
Because it was a restaurant, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. So that was the last business that we had in that particular area. Kazoom is fine, but that's in the Dempster Mall. And I
Right.
would imagine they would go until the mall hours, which I think are end at 10. But, you know,
I mean,
she's not asking for that
Well,
long.
right. Well, I
Well,
mean, I think it's important to give, whatever we think is going to work nicely for whatever business might be there.
I mean, I would be happy with a 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. if those hours are agreeable to the applicant.
And that just gives
Yeah,
her
and
that
that
room
does-
to
yeah,
operate.
that doesn't
she
mean-
have to use
yeah,
it.
that doesn't mean she has to, right.
to open at 9 a.m., but that just gives you leeway if you want to stay open a couple nights a week or open early one day or something like that.
Is that Monday through Sunday?
That's 7 days a week. So with that, now can we have a motion, please?
Okay. Once more, in the matter of 13 ZMJV-0071, 1900 Asbury Avenue, I move that we recommend to City Council the approval of a special use permit for a resale establishment with the following condition: that the hours are to be no earlier or later than 9 a.m. opening and 9 p.m. closing, Monday, or 7 days a week.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Again, 4 votes in favor. The motion will move on to City Council with a recommendation to confirm.